And what is going on, everyone? And welcome to a special edition of Houston Texans football on Bleacher Report. I am one part of your show, Ruben Calavillo. You can find me on YouTube, dropping daily Houston Texans content. 713 Houston Sportcast. The man with me, Harley Dugan, also dropping daily Houston Astros Rockets content at TheLead_Houston. Harley, what is going on? We got a lot to talk about today.
A lot to talk about, and only a short 30 minutes to get into it. But yeah, I'm doing fine, man. Houston Texans extended the best cornerback in football
Ooh.
today, so good news to hear from that. And who knows, maybe there's something on the horizon that we don't know yet.
Mm, I like it. But before we do, we want to shout out Bleach Report allowing us to come on here and talk Houston Texans football. Always a shout out to the man upstairs. And the first piece that Harley dropped, according to Adam Schefter, Texans All-Pro cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. has agreed to a 3-year, $90 million extension, including $89 million guaranteed. At $30 million base value per year, Stingley is now the highest paid defensive back in NFL history. The cornerback market has been completely reset, deal negotiated by David Mulligetta of Athletes First. Harley, your reaction to seeing the news of Derek Stingley getting a 3-year contract extension, locking him up here in Houston for the next 5 years?
Happy for him, man. Absolutely, he deserves every penny. He showed last year at the end when he got healthy, when he returned. He returned what we always thought Derek Stingley could be, and that was 2 years ago. And then this previous year, he did it for a full season, did his thing, and was just absolutely lights out. I mean, Derek Stingley again, the best cornerback in football, argue a wall. All pro Sting is definitely real. The guy is locked down. Insane go home interception against Tyreek Hill in the
Mm,
Miami Dolphins game.
won
That
you that
really
game.
was like, whoa, holy nuts. This is a different kind of cornerback we got here in Htown. And I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him. Obviously, he was going to get a good deal considering the agent that was represented for him in David Mulligetta. Um, you could say it's expensive, yes, but we all knew it was coming sooner or later. This was the offseason to pay Derek Stingley, and Nick Casario did just that.
Yeah, David Mulligetta is one of the best agents out there. He is
Mm,
going to get his guys paid. And, you know, I love this. Derek
mm.
Stingley, I think he makes this free agency, class better. You locked him down for the future. And that's exactly what Derek Stingley also wanted himself. When you go back and watch the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark and company, he said he wanted to be in Houston forever. And today him and the organization, they took a step forward in that direction. One part that I liked about that interview, Harley, was when they were talking about the contract extension, and Derek Stingley said, um I'm just gonna be in the weight room and I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and work out. And Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor, they all looked at him, gave him a side eye, laughed, and said, okay. But no, that's not Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley is not someone that's going to go and, get a lot of attention on social media to show his displeasure. He reminds me of Andre Johnson. I am going to lead by example. And Harley, when an elite player like this, is going to get a contract extension, there's always some type of buzz. He's dropping eye emojis like Laramie Tunsil does every time a new tackle gets paid. Derek Stingley, quiet, put his head down. Now is the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. We got us one, man. We got us something special with Stingley. He puts another, couple more All Pros together. We're talking about a Go Jacket.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you pretty much summed it up pretty perfectly there when it comes to Stingley's character, the intangibles that he brings as a cornerback for your team. I think his intangibles speak loudly. And I'm glad you talked about the Pivot podcast there. Yeah, man, he was super like, hey, he saw how Nico Collins put his head down and kept working, and he got paid. And now this is another guy that the Houston Texans drafted, Nick Casario drafted, and he put his head down, had some injuries, but put his head down, kept the head down, grinded, and got the work done. And now he's getting paid.
Mhm.
And I'm just happy for him, man. It's always good when a player gets their money, they get their worth. And shoot, you mentioned it. He is another All Pro. You're starting to go, Derek Stingley, yeah, but you might be you gonna creep yourself up very highly onto the boards of the greats when it comes to the
Mhm.
cornerback position, and he gets another All Pro and he gets some Pro Bowl selections. But the biggest thing is if he could get that ring.
Mm.
If we could get that ring, that
Mm.
definitely puts a little more stamp to that resume there.
And a lot of people are saying, "Wow, you paid so much money for a player that's only been fully healthy one season." And I'll say this: when it comes to Derek Stingley, Harley, the same conversation we've had for the past 3 years is that it's never been a matter of talent. We've been talking about how special Derek Stingley is since all the way back in LSU. When healthy, we know he's one of the best, if not the best, cornerback in the NFL. 11 games played last year, 5 interceptions. We said, man, if he shows us he can be a Pro Bowler in 2024, hey, maybe even All Pro, then you have to talk about a contract extension. Man, he blew our expectations out the water. 5 interceptions, won that game against the Miami Dolphins, 2 INTs against Justin Herbert in the wild card round. Derek Stingley, dude. I mean, what can I say? It's one of the best in the NFL. I'm so happy he got done, and it just backs up what I said a couple of days ago. The Houston Texans are going to have the best secondary in the NFL.
Big time. And I think the best way to say it for Derek Stingley is don't throw his way. And just don't throw his way. I mean, let's be there. I don't why the NFL continued, why NFL teams continue to throw that man's way was shocking to me. I mean, I thought we would have figured it out at some point, and no, they just did not. I thought, especially in the playoffs, why are you going to continue to try to force it towards Derek Stingley? And nope, he burned him not once but twice. Stingley is a fantastic player, man. We all know this. And again, super happy for him. Glad he got the contract done. Glad he got his deal done. And can't wait to see what he's got in store for like you mentioned, 5 years here. He's going to be finishing the 2 years. Then he's got the 3 years contract. So 89 million guaranteed. Must be nice, man.
Why not 90? Like why leave 100 like 1 mil on the books?
I have no clue. I really don't. Those are schematics and logistics that I don't think me or you are qualified to speak on.
Yeah, only Texans cap, man. He got
Shout
those
out to
numbers
Troy.
down. Shout out to Troy. But all of Houston, we all loved it. We love Derek Stingley, and you already said he's the best Houston Texans cornerback of all time. I'm kind of leaning your way as well. So more news regarding defensive backs. The Houston Texans, they sign a veteran. They bring in Ronald Darby. During this free agency period, a cheap 1 year deal. Harley, your thoughts on Ronald Darby now being a Houston Texan?
Happy. I mean, ultimately, the Houston Texans needed outside corner depth. Ronald Darby could do both, where he could play outside corner. I wouldn't say
Mhm.
you want him playing nickel, especially at his age, but he can play nickel if you are in a jam. He's 31, 32 years old. He was okay for the Jaguars. He wasn't anything crazy, but he's not coming here to start. And so that's
Mm-mm.
what's really nice. And when you ultimately look at it, the bar was low to improve Jeff Okuda. And I think Ronald Darby's about an average to maybe slightly below, maybe slightly above average kind of corner. Like he teeters around
He's
that
a
range.
Jag.
And yeah, he's just not bad. He's all right. A good cornerback depth. He's a veteran, really good for the locker room as well.
Mhm.
Him, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, solid cornerback trio. You have Jalen Petrie in the nickel, who's going to be playing in the nickel a lot. Um, who knows what else they do? I still wouldn't mind if they took a look at a late round cornerback in the draft. I would really like that. But I don't mind it so much. Tremont Smith can still play the cornerback position as well. Again, nobody that you want starting, but hey, I don't mind the move.
No, and he played 13 games this year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Appeared in 16 games last year for Baltimore. 5 years the year prior to that in Denver, 11, 16, 11, 9, 8. So kind of spotty when it comes to relying on him to be there on Sunday, but just like you said, we're not gonna really rely on Ronald Darby. He is here more for depth, and we got our two cornerbacks, right? Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. Um, I like the move for the locker room, more than anything. I think the Texans are trying to go, into a new culture. And when you look at Ronald Darby, you see Buffalo, you see Philly, you see, Denver and Baltimore, and you're like, okay, those are some pretty good organizations, and maybe Ronald Darby could bring some of his veteranship leadership that he learned over there to here to Houston. The Texans also signed Jacob Johnson,
Mhm.
fullback, to a 1 year deal. Your thoughts on Jacob Johnson,
Okay.
right?
He has connections to Nick Caley, it's a fullback. I mean, we'll see. I think the only thing that I was going, all right, well, you remember that guy British Brooks? Like a lot of fans have forgotten about British
Yeah.
Brooks.
Training
British
camp
Brooks,
Damien. Remember, we were like, man, who is that?
I loved him at training camp. I thought he was fantastic, and he found his way on the roster at the 53-man roster at the fullback position, and it's something that a lot of fans were excited to see. And unfortunately, that got derailed because he had a season-ending injury that unfortunately ended his season last year, and we don't know what's going to happen. Look, the only thing I could see is Nick Caley. He has a connection with Jacob Johnson. Does he lean more towards that way? Or is he going to say, hey, I just brought him in because I have a connection? It's still an open competition. Who knows? But competition is always good for the Houston Texans, always, no matter what the position. But, fullback, Jacob Johnson, British Brooks, we'll see
Hmm.
what happens. British Brooks is a big dude. He's about, what, like 5'11, 230 or something like that,
Hank.
225, I think it was. He's massive. So him at fullback was very fun and preseason and stuff. Again, we just never really got to see that to come to fruition in the regular season.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see that training camp battle. And man, if Britta Brooks, if he didn't get hurt, I would have been excited to see what he could potentially give you. Undrafted, man, but like I said, was making a lot of waves at training camp. There was one moment where he busted one open for like a 60-yard touchdown, and the first person to go up and congratulate him was General Manager Nick Casario, who stands all the way in the backfield when he watches training camp. Have we discussed the Ed Ingram trade yet?
Yes, we have.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about the offensive line, Harley, once again, because it's clear now who the starters are at this very point. And that's Titus Howard at left tackle, Lakin Tomlinson at left guard, either Juice or Jarrett at center. We'll just go Juice for the sake of the argument. Ed Ingram at right guard and Blake Fisher at at right tackle. That's your O line as of right now. Any disagreements?
Well, I would say Aaron Wilson would have a disagreement considering on his YouTube channel. And this was just an opinion. This wasn't anything
Okay.
where he was anything reporting wise. And Aaron Wilson, a guy that is very much an insider for the Houston Texans for KPRC Local 2 uh, here in Houston. Aaron Wilson said the exact same lineup you had, but Drew Scruggs at guard, Jarrett Patterson at center. Now, Drew
Mm.
Scruggs, as we know, last year played shortly at the right guard position, and it didn't look so bad. That was just his opinion, but obviously his opinion has some weight to it because he wouldn't just throw an opinion out there if there isn't anything substantial to throw it out there with. So it makes you wonder. Ed Ingram again. All you gave up was a 6th-round pick for him, a guy that was again, he's a camp body. 6th round pick. What's the difference between him and a 6th round pick? To me, you have more potential in Eddie Ingram than you would have gotten out of a 6th round pick. But who knows? Juice Scruggs being at guard is interesting. But I still continue to go back to the Nick Casario quote. Nick
Mhm.
Casario talking about Juice Scruggs being a better fit at the center position than he was at guard. Who knows? We'll see. But ultimately, I don't mind the O line you threw out there. I don't. Um, I think that's probably, at least
Mhm.
on paper, that's what we have to go with. Obviously, the Houston Texans are going to try to improve the trenches through the draft, specifically the offensive line. So whether that's Tyler Booker, a few guys actually that Aaron Wilson did mention, Tyler Booker, Gray Zabel, Josh
Mhm.
Connerly, Josh Simmons, and Kelvin Banks. What's so uh, talkative about them three guys is they're all tackles. Now, yes, they have the ability to move the guard. That
Mhm.
is possible. Josh Simmons has played everywhere on the O line. Josh Connerly has had talks about moving to guard. Kelvin Banks has had talks about moving to guard. I don't know if that's their better fit. I like
Mhm.
them more as, the tackle. I
Kind of
mean,
what we need him to
again,
be, right?
it doesn't really matter to me. Like Titus has shown the ability to play guard.
Mhm.
Maybe not at the highest level, but he has shown the ability to play guard. And he has that versatility. Again, I don't care what it is. If it's the best guard on your board, take him. If it's the best tackle on your
Mhm.
board, take him. You need offensive line guys immediately.
Yeah, you bring up immediately, and I'm getting this vibe from the fan base that they think the offensive line is going to get okay. Is going to be better. And I'm just, I'm wondering where this optimism is coming from because when you look at the situation, you give away LT, Laramie Tunsil, you got rid of Shaq Mason, and you got rid of Kenyon Green, and you replaced your two guards with basically more Kenyon Greens because when it came down to being graded as some of the worst guards, the top five had Kenyon Green, Lakin Tomlinson, and Ed Ingram who you traded for from the Minnesota Vikings, which is why I wanted to ask this because you brought up, is there another move that needs to be made? And I'm like, you have to maybe go out there and try to find one more veteran free agent. Is there another Shaq Mason trade out there for you? We just saw Garrett Bradbury got released, and that's someone who we talked about last Friday. Don't see it happening because you always, you bring up how they want to give Juice a try, and I kind of, am leaning towards that. What other movement could they make for this O line?
I mean, I still don't mind your Garrett Bradbury take. I really don't. But I do believe that they're going to give the tryout of Juice
Mm-hmm.
Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson, try to let them figure out what center is going to be there. I like Dalton Risner. I mentioned him in the last episode here. After that, though, man, you're starting to weed into the bushes, because I mean, Will Hernandez, there's a little bit of an injury history there now. He's had the injury bug for the past 2 seasons. But when he was healthy for the Cardinals last year, he was playing some good football for them. But again, that's a big risk that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Texans are willing to take. Mekhi Becton, as we know, already got signed by the Los Angeles
2 years,
Chargers,
20.
2 years, $20 million. So he's off the board now. And to me, I thought that would have been a pretty solid risk to take. In terms of offensive line, I think they're done, man. Unless there's somebody that they can look at the trade block or somebody that we don't know that could be traded. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know Laramie Tunsil was going to be traded. We didn't know Joe Thuney was going to get traded. So who knows if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm going at this offensive line and trying to improve it and go every stone unturned. I'm asking teams for players that we don't know if they're going to be willing to trade or not, but you might as well ask them. Hey, Trent Williams, how you doing over there in San Francisco? I would not mind Trent Williams. I
Not at
wouldn't,
all.
especially considering you have he would be here short term. Like I don't mind that idea. I'm just trying to improve the O line
Mm-hmm.
in some way, shape, or form. But I do believe it's no more into free agency. And as much as I was hoping for another move to happen, I'm starting to get the feel that maybe maybe that splash signing that you could
Mhm.
get at the very last second or so. I'm not quite sure that's going to be happening anymore.
So, which brings me back to where I'm like, okay, we're talking about how this offensive line got worse. Where is all this optimism coming from? And if I'm CJ Stroud, I'm scared for my life. I was already the second most sacked quarterback, in the NFL, and now I'm without a left tackle and potentially, maybe 1 to 2 new rookies starting for me in 2025. And we know how bad it was for Patrick Mahomes that Super Bowl night. That was all year for CJ Stroud. It's like you got to hit on these draft picks coming up, Harley, for the offensive line. Because if you don't, we're going to have another David Carr, Deshaun Watson, just cannot protect the quarterback.
Yeah, I can't have that again, man. We've been through that for far too long for this franchise. It's only been very, like, we talk about how great that offensive line was during the Kubiak day of Schaub, Foster, and Andre
Mhm.
Johnson. But that O line did not last very long. It was very short term. They did not last long here. And it's unfortunate because for the majority of our lives, the Houston Texans have never had a complete offensive line. They might have had maybe a few guys here or there,
Mhm.
but besides maybe 4 years with that O line, maybe four, five. I think five's too much. Hell, I think four might be too much. I think it was 3 to 4 years. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
I just hope that, because you are playing a risk at this, Harley, and then the risk is only your franchise quarterback, CJ Stroud. So when you think they did the move for Tones, you think it was purely a locker room move, or did they also look at the money factor into it as well?
I mean, according to Aaron Wilson, it was more of just a money move. They were looking into paying Derek Stingley as well as the other young guys that are on there, and they
Mhm.
also made it known to Laramie Tunsil that they were going to shop him, and so hey, they traded him to a contender at the very least, to
Yeah,
the
he can't be
Washington
mad.
Commanders. They did right by him, but you can't also sweep under the rug the issues on the field, whether it comes to the willingness to make that extra block, the willingness for effort is something that we were questioning with Laramie Tunsil. Him at training camp, he ain't going to do anything that's voluntary. He's only going to do all the mandatory
Hmm.
stuff. And a lot of times he would come into the mandatory training camps
And not do nothing.
rehabbing an injury, this random injury that he was dealing with or something, and he come in a few days later or hell sometimes a week later and come in and they're like, oh, Laramie's back, and everyone be like, oh, Laramie wasn't there. Oh, well, it was an injury. Oh, okay. So, you know, you can't sweep it under the rug. It's definitely out there, but it's being more reported that
Hmm.
this was about the money and this was about trying to pay the rest of these guys, the rest of the youngsters that are coming up for us.
And that's the thing, because you're gonna have to pay Will Anderson in a couple of years. You're gonna have to
Yes.
pay CJ in a couple of years. Hey, you might have to pay Jalen Petrie, next
Yes.
season. Actually, I think you do have to pay
Yeah.
Jalen Petrie next season. So these are the tough decisions you have to make. But man, we are in the off season. However, it just doesn't feels like it, because now we are just weeks away from the NFL draft. I did a mock draft, man, and I had Josh Simmons at
Okay.
25, and I had the guard from Arizona State. I don't want to mess up his name here on Bleach Report. I will learn it though. I mean, if those are your two first picks, I'm all in. Let's go. There's the youth, and now with your two third-round picks that you received, from the Laramie Tunsil trade. Well, one, now you have two in the third. You can make something happen. Go after, BPA instead of something like a Needham. Who's to say you don't trade up and get a Kelvin Banks or a Will Campbell? I think the options are always open. We've seen Nick Casario, Harley. If he wants his guy, go get his guy.
Yeah. Hey, I don't mind that. I love that mindset. I've always said that before. I love the if you think that guy's the best on the board and he's still available, then go get him.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid. And we know Nick Casario is not afraid to trade up and trade some stuff to go get the guy he specifically wants. Like, we know he is not afraid to do so. We saw it just 2 years ago in not only getting CJ Stroud, but making that blockbuster trade of getting Will Anderson as well. I don't mind that. Josh Simmons and Jonah, Jonah S. from Arizona. I don't
Hmm.
know how to pronounce his last name, but hey, man, he's obviously a big old Samoan, slated at tackle, but could be moved inside the guard. That's where a lot of NFL scouts are saying that he could fit better in. Look, you grab the tackle and you grab the guard right there. I mean,
And then
anything the
move
Texans
Titus
are going to
back to
need.
left.
Yeah,
Move
like you could
Titus
do a
back to.
lot of stuff there. You can move Titus back to left guard. You can have Jonah right at right guard, or any sort of competition battle that is going to work. And then you still got two other picks inside the top 100 there, because you got 4 picks in total inside the top 100. Those two other picks, I'll tell you, I feel like wide receiver definitely is going to be something the Texans are going to target. It would not shock me if running back is one of those
Mm.
positions that they target. And yeah, I was very curious. Nobody has pointed this out from Aaron Wilson's video, but he threw a little tidbit in there that no one has talked about. And he said the tight end position that the Houston Texans are looking to build with a young person at
Mhm.
tight end. He mentioned Cade Stover. He mentioned Brevin Jordan. He did not mention Dalton Schultz. And it's I think there's a tidbit in there that maybe the Houston Texans, it makes you wonder if Colston Loveland is close enough at 25. Is Nick Caley enamored enough with Colston Loveland to move up? Or does, if he failed to 25, either option, do the Houston Texans make this a conversation to get Colston Loveland, who looks really, really good? He
Mhm.
does. I don't know how he is as a blocker, but you cannot deny that Nick Caley, a former tight ends coach, if he has the ability to go get himself a tight end, maybe he loves one, and it is Colston Loveland, pun intended.
What about trading for Michael Mayer?
And that's not a bad idea as well. I love that
Because
idea.
they got Brock Bowers. I don't know what they're doing with Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
Before Brock Bowers came, they were talking about, Michael Mayer being like one of the best tight end prospects in a very long time. And then came Brock Bowers. So I don't know what, Las Vegas would probably want to do with him, but I wouldn't mind, sending a late round draft pick to them. But new tight end would be great because we saw Donson Schultz his play, and it just looked like he did not want to be out there. Which was kind of disappointing because when we talked about this offense, we always mentioned Donson Schultz. Well, we mentioned him during the beginning, how how he's going to be one of the five-headed monsters that CJ Stroud mentioned. Not bad, he's good. Gator says, we have to agree. He's not bad, he is good. Some more news, Harley. Danico Autry, instead of
Mm.
getting released, which we all thought, contract restructure. I think he's going to take little less money to stay here in Houston, giving us more
Yeah.
money towards the cap. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Aaron reported it as, and again,
Shout out to
this isn't
Aaron.
any. Yeah, shout out to him, man. He was doing it last night on the YouTube channel. He was doing his thing, again, unofficial, but he said the numbers were estimated that the Texans opened up about $6 to $7 million in cap space. So
There has to be
whatever
one
the
more signing, bro.
right, like
It
Ronald
feels like
Darby,
it.
Ronald Darby and the fullback just doesn't feel like, I want to feel like it's over, but I just don't want to. I don't want to say it's over quite yet for the Texans
Okay.
for free agency. I don't know who that next move is. I don't know. Is it Stephon Diggs?
I'll give him this week,
Somebody.
and that's it.
And what's really funny, Aaron Wilson mentioned Stephon Diggs and Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I roll my eyes at that one.
I'm not. I'm not. I don't want
You're
Brandon
not rolling
Cooks.
your eyes at that one. He basically James Hardened us. We're
Who?
not good enough.
Brandon Cooks.
Yeah,
I don't want Brandon Cooks.
me either. Thank God. Okay,
No
I'm glad.
offense.
I don't want Brandon
It
Cooks.
is what it is. I have a sour taste in Brandon Cooks. He's got to, if he was supposed to be signed by the Houston Texans, he's got to have an open camera, and he's got to have an open recording session to all the fans, and he's got to talk and apologize to all of us.
Mm. For those of you who don't know, Brandon Cooks legit basically said the Texans were not good enough and he wants to go somewhere, where he could win. Gets traded to the Dallas Cowboys and hasn't done any winning. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank everyone who was a part of this Monday edition. We saw the contract extension of Derek Stingley, the contract signing of Ronald Darby, the contract restructure of Danico Autry. What does Nick Caserio have planned to wrap up free agency? But one thing's for sure, me and Harley will talk about it on Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Do us all a favor. Have a very blessed rest of your day. And like Gator said, we'll close it there. Cooks cannot come back here.